Hello, this is Community Unity Now, the D Tycoon Show. This is Bill Morton, my co-host. He is the president of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce, and I am Trudy Leong, administrator of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce. Our very, very special guest today is Justice Cynthia Cobbs. Welcome, Justice Cobbs.
Thank you, Trudy, and thank you, Bill, for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Well, first of all, Justice Cobbs, tell us about what district you are running for retention, and tell us the entire position of your current position that you are running for retention.
So I want to make clear so that the listeners understand that this is not retention. This is a campaign to be elected for the first time to the Illinois Appellate Court. Even though I am assigned by the Supreme Court to serve as an appellate court justice, I must yet be elected. That's very different from retention. But I am currently serving as an appellate court justice where I've been for 9 years. And on your ballots for the primary, you will see my name as I am standing for election to a 10-year term now to continue my service as an appellate court justice.
Oh, thank you for clarifying.
Sure.
Justice Cobbs, you have a degree in clinical social work. So could you tell us a little bit about how you worked in social work and how that affected your becoming a lawyer and now a judge?
I'll try and make it a short story. It can be long, but I'll try and truncate it because we don't have all day. But I started my professional career as a clinical social worker some 30, 40 years ago now. Undergraduate degree was in sociology, and then I developed an interest in working with families and children, and more particularly children who were the subjects or allegedly abused and neglected. And so I obtained my master's degree in clinical social work, and I was frequently in court in Maryland, in the Maryland courts, advocating for the protection of abused and neglected children. It seemed to me sometimes that judges who were trained in the law were not necessarily trained to understand family dynamics or developmental stages of children, what children could and could not understand at particular ages, what they could and could not fabricate about events that occurred to them. I thought that I could then couple my law degree, with my social work degree. And my work as a clinical social worker then is what actually inspired me to seek a law degree.
That's very interesting. So I guess there are not that many other judges that have your background that are doing what you are doing.
I've not heard anyone claim that they're a clinical social worker in all of the years that I've been serving on the bench, and not even in my time when I was a lawyer. I've known individuals who have come from other fields, other professions, but as far as I know, I've not heard of anyone else who quite holds the same types of degrees that I do in social work and in law.
So what kind of benefits, maybe you can give us a story, what kind of benefits does this give you in this position?
You know, as a social worker, you learn a lot about how to deal with or be engaged with individuals who are in crisis, people who are in particular needs, people who have issues that need to be resolved. So you learn in social work a lot about problem solving. That is, of course, what judges do. You learn a lot in social work how to listen and to understand the dynamics and the issues, the problems that people present. And to hear and then really come up with the best solution. You know, it's not really accurate to say that judges always have the right answers. In our systems, we also have things like mediation or conflict resolution. A lot of cases are resolved in the courts by judges, but sometimes, and when I was serving as a trial court judge, I would frequently refer clients or litigants to conflict resolution to have them mediate or resolve the problem without me having to issue a judgment or a ruling. But my social work skills are with me. You never unlearn those skills. They're with you all the time, and you use them every day to listen and to understand, to really get a different kind of perspective on the issues that are presented to you by the litigants that appear before you.
For conflict resolution, when you try to get the case resolved that way, is the conflict resolution connected to the court, or are they separate, a separate entity?
They are, well, I'll say a couple things. So when I was a trial court judge, there are a couple of entities or a couple of organizations that will meet with litigants and try and mediate or resolve the conflict with them. One such organization, and I had happened to serve on the board of directors of that one, was the Center for Conflict Resolution. So when I was a trial court judge and I was hearing cases where individual defendants might have a dispute between one another over money or over rent or some such thing, it was small enough that they just couldn't hear each other. That was really the problem. They couldn't hear each other, and so they would talk over each other, and you couldn't get one to understand the other. I would more often than not offer to them the opportunity to sit with someone who could resolve the conflict with them. Teach them how to really listen to one another and come up with their own resolution of the dispute, as opposed to me as the judge hearing the evidence and deciding the issue for them. I would often say to those individuals, you'll be more satisfied if the two of you can work it out, as opposed to if I, as the judge, decides one or the other of you wins or loses. So Center for Conflict Resolution is still in existence in Cook County, and I believe that the circuit court, the judges there, still regularly rely on that program.
Since you have that background in social work, would you say that more of your cases you recommend to go to the Center for Conflict Resolution, or is it pretty other judges also use the Center for Conflict Resolution if at all possible?
Well, it really does depend on the nature of the case. And the facts of the case. Not every case lends itself easily to conflict resolution, but in law, we always encourage the parties, whether they are using an outside mediator or someone to resolve the conflict, we always favor and encourage parties to try and settle matters as opposed to having the court settle it. So you'll see cases sometimes wind their way up in the court system, and then the parties, after they've gone through quite a bit of pre-trial practice or procedure with the judge, they may on their own decide to settle the case. In the appellate court, we also have a mediation program. So sometimes there are cases, even after they've left the trial court and there is an appeal pending, the case might lend itself to settlement. And we have a mediation program in the appellate court. I would have to offer, we don't settle a lot of cases in the appellate court by mediation, but it is a program that we offer to the parties who wish to do that.
You won the Cook County Bar Association Trailblazer Award. What was that for?
Well, Trudy, you really have done a lot of research. So you know a lot about me, probably more than I know about myself. And I'm happy about that. Thank you for bringing it up. First, I'll say the Cook County Bar Association, as many individuals know, is one of the oldest bar associations in the country. It is made up largely of African-American judges and lawyers. And annually, the Bar Association will award or honor a member of the Bar Association, and I am a member of the Cook County Bar, a Trailblazers Award for work that they've done in the legal profession. They had taken into account some of the first that I had achieved as an African-American lawyer. For instance, I was the first African-American and the first woman appointed by the Illinois Supreme Court to serve as the director of the Illinois courts. So that was one of the factors that I think informed the Cook County Bar Association to award me with the Trailblazer Award, because I was the first in my field to ever have been appointed by the Supreme Court to that position.
And there was something over here about the historic preservation for the Supreme Court, and you were a part of that as well. What kind of historic preservation of the Supreme Court is involved in that?
As I said, Trudy, you've done your homework. Now we're going back, way back to when I was the director of the Illinois courts. And I can't really remember the year, but at some point in time, in my work as a director, working with the Illinois Supreme Court, the justices, we had some dialogue about how to preserve, how to even identify some of the historical factors around the Illinois Supreme Court when it was first conceived, when it first came into being more than 100 years ago, to try and identify and collect some of the memorabilia that was related to the work of the Supreme Court. And so, in talking to the court about historic preservation, we needed to develop legislation. And as the director, it was my responsibility on occasion to draft with my staff legislation that would then be presented to the General Assembly, and then to invite a legislator to sponsor a bill. And in this instance, we were able to draft legislation. We identified a legislator, and at this point, I don't remember who would introduce a bill in the legislature that created the Illinois Historic Preservation Commission. So it had its genesis when I was the director working with the court, and it still operates today, collecting artifacts and memorabilia, and really just maintaining the rich history of the Illinois Supreme Court.
Yeah, Bill and I have been doing so many interviews with judges for this election, and we've learned so much about it because most voters, when they go into the voting booth, they don't know anything about all those judges' names on the ballot, and we wanted to bring the faces of these judges to the voting public.
There used to be the Green Book.
I appreciate that.
The Green Book, where you get to see all the judges, and
right.
There's nothing like that anymore, is there?
No, I guess I can't find it.
Well, you know, there is, and we've always encouraged, and I would encourage your listeners to do exactly this. And I've been on this site myself. There is a site, voteforjudges.com, and I'll say it again, voteforjudges.com, which identifies every judge who is in a contested race. And it will set forth all of the Bar Association's evaluations or their ratings of every candidate who is going to be on the ballot. So I have been, and my colleagues on the slate have been encouraging everyone who needs to know and should know about the judges and the qualifications of those judges as evaluated by the several bar associations. Please, please, please visit voteforjudges.com. You will see a grid there of every contested candidate. You will see my ratings. You'll see my opponent's ratings. They will be right there together. You can determine what judge is rated more highly, more favorably than their opponent. So that's a good starting point.
Well, thank you for that. And is voteforjudges.com cover Cook County, Illinois, or is it nationwide? Do you know?
No, I think now I can't tell you nationwide, but they do cover the Cook County races, and particularly for the 2024 primary that's coming up.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You also, we just want to put a face to Justice Cynthia Cobbs. You also won the Sweet Holy Spirit Justice of the Year Award. We heard that it's very important for judges to have a great temperament. So is that connected with this award, or is it something else?
No, that award was given to me, I think back in 2018. I'm not certain now. I think it might have been in 2018. It's in my office on my desk. With several other wonderful accolades and awards that I've been able to receive over the course of the years. But I am a woman of faith, and Sweet Holy Spirit is a church that is located on the south side of Chicago. And the pastor and the congregation there were aware of my work, aware of my faith, and my temperament and my work in the judiciary, and they honored me with that award some years ago. And so I would like to believe that the award was given to me based on my legal competence and my temperament, and because I am a woman of faith and of great compassion and ruling on matters that come before me.
Well, speaking of compassion, you have worked to help the homeless too. Have you been working to help the homeless before your legal career, or how did you come to start helping the homeless
Well,
in your career?
I have, you never, as I said, you never quite forget your social work roots. And so I feed my passion to help the community and to serve the community by participating in not-for-profit organizations. As you know, judges are limited in what we can do. So I can't work for the organizations, but I can support the work of the organizations. So I've been a board member for South Suburban PADS since 2011. And PADS is actually an acronym for providing, provisions for something else is interfering with my conversation here. Yeah, so PADS is providing services and homeless provisions or homes for those individuals who are homeless in the Southland. So we provide services, we provide social work services, we provide clinical services, even job training, even culinary arts services to the homeless population in order that they might resume life as every other citizen in our community enjoys it. But even before that, or even in tandem with that, I had been on the board for Lawyers Lend a Hand to Youth. And that organization, as you might be aware, Trudy and Bill, serves children who are in broken families. And in this instance, these were children who came largely out of the Inglewood neighborhood in Chicago, often children of single family homes. And we would provide, Lawyers Lend a Hand would provide grant funding to programs that specifically provided mentoring services for those children. So that was one piece of it. But then I also served as a tutor every Tuesday for a child who was involved in the program and who lived in the Inglewood neighborhood. And I'd have to say, I really got stumped a lot when it was time to tutor on fractions. I had to rely on Google because math is not my strong suit. So when we got to fractions, I had to Google a lot to find out whether or not, she had the right answer or I had the right answer, or to figure out how we could get through the fractions part of the tutoring. So I feed my social work passion in working with organizations like PADS and working with organizations like Lawyers Lend a Hand to Youth.
So in this community work, in all this volunteer work, could you give us a couple of stories about the lives that you have changed?
Sure, I can. The young child that I tutored in Lawyers Lend a Hand was quite funny. You never tell them what your profession is. You just come into the room with all the other tutors, and you're just, in my case, I was Miss Cynthia. She did not know at the time that I was a judge. She didn't know that I was a lawyer. She knew none of that. But we tutored at the Chicago Bar Association. And I had received from the Chicago Bar Association an award. It was called the Earl Burris Dickerson Award. And they placed portraits of all of their honorees in the corridor at the Chicago Bar Association. Unbeknownst to me, my young student, scoped me out, my photograph on the wall, and she found out that I was a judge. And although when we began tutoring, she told me that when she grew up, she wanted to work at McDonald's. After she discovered that I was a judge and we had worked long and hard together, she decided that when she grew up, she wanted to be like me and she wanted to be a judge too. So I thought it was like a wonderful story. And I think that she's such a smart young lady, and she's actually completed high school now, and I think is actually going to be beginning her first year of college. So that to me is a very, very sweet, touching, wonderful success story. And I believe that, or at least I want to claim that I had some hand in the career decision, at least to go to college. So we'll see where she ends up.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully you'll stay in touch and follow up and see where she lands.
Yes, I hope so. I hope so.
And what else have you done in the community that you feel has helped you so much in your current work?
So, I also serve on the board of directors for the Illinois Judges Association. The Illinois Judges Association is an organization that is made up of lawyers throughout the state of Illinois. And this past year and the year before that, actually, I have been serving not only on the board of the Judges Association, but this year I happen to co-chair the pro bono committee of the board. And the pro bono committee focuses on really how to ensure access to justice, or that individuals who don't have legal resources are able to nonetheless access the court and have their cases and disputes resolved. But as a part of the pro bono work, we've done some things like adopting Earth Day. So last year on Earth Day, we took judges out to the Forest Preserve in Cook County, and we picked up garbage. We picked up the trash in one of the Cook County Forest Preserves. We called it Nurturing Nature. So we did that, and we're going to do it again this year on Earth Day. The other thing that we did that was significant was we have a day of service, and the day of service happens a little earlier in the year, and this happened already this year. We took a group of judges to the Chicago Food Depository, where we then packaged food that would be in smaller packages for the distribution to many of the food banks across Cook County. So I enjoy being active in the community. I enjoy mentoring. Every law day, I am generally at a high school talking to young students about what it is to make career choices and to talk about my own journey to the bench, hopefully to inspire them. Most recently, a group of judges, maybe a couple weeks ago, me included, were at Skinner Middle School in Chicago. And we were talking to 7th and 8th graders about being judges. And so those are the kinds of things that I continue to do in addition to my judicial work, to be engaged and involved with work in the community.
Yes, and what you described to us is not only helping the community, it's also helping the judges as well to picking up the trash and then also packing the food at the Chicago Food Depository. You're also involved in the training, continuing training for the judges. We don't have a lot of time left, but could you tell us how well the judges are apprised now of the ramifications of the new Safety Act?
Well, we've had quite a bit of training on the Safety Act, even before the Supreme Court decided that it was constitutional. As you know, back in September, there had been a challenge to the constitutionality of the Safety Act. The Supreme Court wrote a decision and decided that it was in fact constitutional. And so those cases, as you know, Trudy and Bill, begin in the trial court with the trial judge determining whether a defendant should be detained or whether he or she may be released pending trial. So those cases, once that decision is made, wind their ways up to the appellate court. So there is training in judicial education for judges to know how to manage those cases, those disputes, as a part of our judicial education training every 2 years.
So if people want to learn more about you as we wrap up here, could you give out your information, say your name again, so that it gets into their minds?
Yes, happy to do so. I am Appellate Court Justice Cynthia Y. Cobbs. That's Cynthia Y. Cobbs. And I have a website. It is www.justicecobbs.com, www.justicecobbs.com.
Wonderful. And thank you so much for joining us on Community Unity Now.
This is Bill Morton, President of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce. I am Trudy Leong, Administrator of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for joining us. Justice Cynthia Cobbs, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.